uh, and it's all Renfrew is quite an interesting but quite attractive main street. So you've got a good. Sorry, I'm just wanting to tick forward to the next. There we go. Front door. Just the lovely entry in there. Not so good for disabled people, but it is what it is. I'm not really planning on making any major changes there, other than painting my lovely building. And so inside the gallery, I actually sell a good mix of framed and unframed landscape and fine art imagery, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. I also sell unframed prints and a little bit of giftware. Actually, this is quite an important shot because it actually shows someone who's been doing the Central Otago Rail Trail this morning, just cruising past and having a wee look. I'm very, very fortunate. The gallery is actually on the main street of Ranfurly. That is actually a state highway that you can see there and part of the Central Otago touring route. The rail trail actually runs along the back of my building, so it's quite well positioned. So I opened this gallery in 2008, sorry, not 2008, 2017, which is 8 years ago. And I'm open for the spring, summer, and autumn months. I do have a little break in the winter, which gives me time to do my creative work, which we're going to talk about later as well. So yes, we're on the rail trail, the touring route. I also do show my work in other places, like as a guest exhibitor, at exhibitions, and also in art shows and things like that. So that's a good way of sort of getting out there. So sorry, we're just navigating this screen sharing. So this is inside. As you can see, I've got some larger pieces. So this is just this morning, so it's quite current work. And that little bit of giftware and things there, which I will talk about later. Different angle, you can see I've got a beautiful sort of reception counter that lovely man Dean made for me. So he's very handy and did an exceptional job, but that thing weighs half a ton. Yeah, just some views there. Right, we'll go back one. So just oh, actually, I've lost myself there. Right, okay. Really important point. I print my own work. So I've been printing since I started taking up photography, especially professionally. That's the beast there. So it's a 24-inch 12 color pigment. I've always enjoyed printing my own work, that sense of control. It's a really tactile kind of process. And it means that I can experiment the hell out of something before I really commit to it, and get things exactly as I want them. So that's a wee stockpile of paper, and I use Ilford papers. I'm very fortunate that I'm an Ilford master. But above the paper there, you can see there's a bunch of prints that are all rolled up and ready for clients who are perhaps a bit further away than New Zealand and Australia. Another very important point is that I actually frame my own work. So I'll take you through all the gadgets associated with that. So this is a mat cutter. I would love a computerized mat cutter like Chris Halliwell has, but it's not quite. I don't quite have the work for it. Right, I'm just admitting some people from the waiting room here. Okay. Yes, so yes, I'd love a computerized mat cutter, but it's not quite a happening thing for me. But this one does a very, very good job, and is really suitable for me. So I'm multitasking here. So this is my sort of framing table where everything happens and I put all my pictures together. It's actually really, really cool because I get to stand up during the day, which is much better for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like I say, they put them both on the drip and tried to get an antidote. And that night, Tuesday night, Minnie, the younger one, started convulsing.
You can mute people if you just hover over the top right of their image. And those little dots you should be able to
Anyway, they said, "Oh, we'll do our best to save."
there we go. Awesome. Thank you for that. So yeah, framing table, it's where I put together all of my pictures, clean the glass, and assemble them. And working at that height is really, really good. But get this, I priced up to actually have a proper table made for me by a joiner, and it was astronomical money. So that's actually a queen size bed frame. And then what Dean has done is made a top for it. And so it's actually really, really good, and it's the perfect height. And I've got the storage underneath. So it's sometimes you've just got to really think laterally.
Yeah, too.
Now I've still got all my fingers just. This is also guillotine, which is standard sort of guillotine for a small to medium picture framing business, but it has a fairly vicious set of blades on it, so you need to be really careful. So Richard Linton quite often talks about his Italian girlfriend, which is his Vespa motor scooter. I think it's a Vespa. Anyway, this is my Italian boyfriend. It's not very attractive, but this is actually an Alpha Machine V-nailer. It's probably one of the best things I've bought recently, and it's made in Italy. So as a lot of this sort of machinery is, but yeah, there he is. So yeah, back to the gallery. But I just thought really briefly after showing you guys around, I thought rather than grabbing my laptop, I'd show you some still photos because otherwise it would get a bit messy. Just how I got started, and many of you will have heard me talk about this. But I think if I'd written a business plan for this business, it would have really killed it. And sometimes the best way to kill a good idea is with a spreadsheet. And I love spreadsheets, and you've got to do your due diligence, but sometimes it's too hard. So I guess the mantra with this has really been just to like little experiments, trying lots of different things out, seeing what worked and what didn't. And I started off with sort of flicking pictures at market days in a 3x3 gazebo, and I learnt tons from actually just listening to the people that came in and saw me. And by that stage, I was an award-winning photographer, and you kind of go through a stage of thinking you know what you're on about, but really, it's just the beginning of a journey. And having said all that, you don't want to be super reactive to everything that everyone tells you. Otherwise, you'll just run yourself ragged, and it can be a little unhelpful. But it's kind of looking for the general feeling, sentiment that's coming through that feedback along with your own gut feelings. And it's so important to just read between the lines and kind of yeah, get the feeling for what the person is actually trying to say whilst trying to be really nice about it. Well, they are trying to be really nice, not necessarily me. But Sorry, I'm just muting a couple of people. So I can't quite spot the person that hasn't muted themselves, but if they could, that would be super cool.
Oh, excuse me. It's me. How do I put that? Oh, babe, can you close the door and I'll just let them know it's me? Can you just close it up? Hang on.
Is that you, Simone?
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Sorry. I'm on my husband's phone because he's on my Zoom meeting. So I'm trying to get in.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll rock on. I'm just talking about how I got going.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all good. So like a lot of people, my fine art photography sort of started as a bit of a side hustle and was running alongside portrait, wedding and commercial photography. And I will so never regret the skills that I actually learnt by doing those things, especially weddings, because I learned how to operate really quickly and be quite decisive. But as I said in the intro, there was kind of a bit of a perfect storm brewing for all this. I think I was learning to develop those skills. Sorry, I'm just can you guys see me? Yes, perfect. Sorry, I thought I'd kind of stuff things up there. A rookie with Zoom. Yeah, perfect storm was developing. So I was actually really developing some skills in that fine art space through entering the Iris Awards, and I was really enjoying it, and that was growing at a faster rate than my skills as a portrait photographer. I had a real interest in design and aesthetics. I always have been printing my own work. I met Dean, my lovely partner Dean, and I should show you a photo of him. He's a classic. But he definitely encouraged me and definitely showed me around this area, which is an epic area for photography. I never said that in the beginning, but I live in paradise for photographers. And as I said before, I was starting to really challenge myself and my work through the Iris Awards. Tourism is a major where I live. Commercial property prices in the Miniatara are pretty low. I was figuring out how to frame stuff. And then the icing on the cake was busting my Achilles tendon so that I couldn't do all my other normal work, and it applied just the right amount of financial pressure to really get me going. And this coupled with a bit of transferable skills, which we all have from previous careers, certainly sort of it all combined to really suggest that this was a good path forward for me. And I'm really lucky because I enjoy the business stuff just as much, and at times possibly more than the creative stuff. So I suppose out of all that came sort of a bit of an overarching kind of, what do I really want? What's my strategy for want of a better word? And it's actually evolved over a few years, but there's definitely a few things that I've really wanted. And sorry, I'm going to have to read off my list, otherwise I'll forget it all. I wanted to sell things I believed in and were decent quality. I wanted to express my creativity and do something different from the other stuff that's been done in this area. I wanted to be profitable. I couldn't really afford to make a loss. And I wanted to do something tangible and real, because in those previous careers that I talked about, all I did was shuffle paper. I still wanted a life and to support Dean and my kids, who are pretty young at that point. Some folk really put a lot of pressure on me and said, you have to work 7 days a week to make this project fly. And I'm like, I don't think so. So I took a stand on that one. And I wanted to evolve in my creative work. I also wanted to be part of the community that I live in through my business. And I'm involved in quite a bit of lots of different stuff here, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that was what I really wanted. And I encourage anyone that's thinking about this sort of journey to really consider what they want, but it's a moving feast. So I had a bunch of stuff to figure out how after I started, and some of this will come up in the questions, I think. I must admit, I'm kind of a fan of the old 5 Ps of marketing from Marketing 101 at university. So starting off with the product thing, initially I did have a product problem. My work wasn't really strong enough. But I think the Iris Awards and all the things I've learnt through NZIPP played a huge role in getting me going. The other thing was nobody really wanted prints that were unframed, and you have to pay a fortune to frame them, and you can't hang them up on the wall straight away. So that was a really important part of solving that product problem. And I think having a mix of images, things that are perhaps a little more accessible, along with the cream of the crop, the really, you know, high-priced fine art stuff, that sort of variety works for me. So yeah, I'm gradually sort of evolving that product. Pricing, which is the second of the 5 Ps. I'm going to let you guys ask me questions about that later. I'm not going to go there. But I welcome questions. Same with talking about place. I've talked about that sort of great location that I have. It's a bit more than a happy accident. Promotion. Now, that's another thing that I welcome questions about, but you know, I do all the usual suspects, but I'll give a big shout out to my website, which is fully under my control. And rack cards, which this, you know, sort of thing. And oh, this one's really cute. It sort of like goes like that and then opens out and then opens out. So we quite like that. It's fun doing graphic design. But those sorts of things really work really well. No one leaves my gallery without one. And referrals and lovely locals, big shout out for them. I do really well out of that as well. So, and the last of the 5 Ps is people. And for me, it's all about my customers. I don't have any staff here at the moment, but I have had them in the past. And it's just offering good customer service, good responsive customer service. So yeah. So without wasting too much time on it, thought you guys might be interested in some of the nuts and bolts that actually happen in my gallery, so that it's sort of like worked examples of what I do. So I have a few really boring systems and procedures, but they work for me, and they are actually a really important part. I mean, you can be creative all day long, but sometimes if you don't sort of nail this stuff, it's really hard to get a business going. So just for a start, as an example, I have like little worksheets for every picture that I produce in my gallery. So it's got like what sort of paper I print it on, how big the print is. The prints are all sitting in a folder on my hard drive and backed up a million times over at the prescribed size that's going to work with my framing, so that I just can bang it through. The size of the mat board, what width of the mat board, the size of the frame, all the details. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time I make something. It makes it much more efficient. This was an idea I got from Dean and a friend of mine who's an engineer, about just worksheets. So I will now share my screen, I hope. So one of the best things I've done is actually get my own website going, and it's helped me get the data organized around all the things that I produce. So I think I'm not too sure how many sort of like pictures are in my catalogue, but it's probably getting up towards 200 now. And that's a lot to sort of organize, and having my own website actually helps me, but I've got other ways I do it too. But this is actually it's like a kid's Chromebook, but it's actually a touch screen. And so people can come into my gallery and actually look at my website.
And the APP.
Sorry, just mute that one. And so they become familiar with what they will see online as well. But also it means I don't have to produce a paper catalogue, which is fantastic. The other thing that I've had to learn is about actually merchandising. So this is just a wee selection of the giftware that I have in the shop. Two reasons for this. One, it makes me look like a legit place to go to, like a proper shop. The other is that I get a number of people who come in and they're just there for a look. They're never going to buy a framed picture, but they're quite interested in just taking away something small. So I've had to learn how to order that stuff, make it look okay, you know, sort of nice colors and all this sort of stuff, and make it complement what I'm doing with my own work rather than overrunning it. So sticking to my knitting a bit. So I've got Jackie and Mike's books. I get a lot of photographers come and visit me, so why not help them too? The other thing, this is probably my most popular picture. You can see why with the rail trail, but being able to offer it in different sizes with different frames and unframed prints, etc., etc., it makes it easy for people to take things away. So there's a wee basket on the right-hand side, and it's got things in it that people can actually, that are made so people can put them in their panniers and take them away. Awards, it's quite interesting. People actually really appreciate that their chosen artwork is an award-winning artwork. It's sort of, you know, third-party endorsement. I've made a good decision, that sort of stuff. And so yeah, I display them in the gallery proudly. But it's quite interesting. I tell you what, silvers sell. Golds are quite, you know, quite up there, but silvers are the sellers. I also sell greeting cards. I mean, they help me pay the power bill. I design and get those printed locally, and just easy money. Promotion wise, these are these wrap cards that I was holding up before. Here's an important one. I actually run a proper point of sale system at the gallery, because at any one time I know what I've got and I also know what I need to make. It integrates with FPOS, because before I had this, I had a pen and paper system and I had some glorious cock-ups. I really did. But this system actually integrates with Xero, so I spend a lot less time doing the bookkeeping. And if I ever had a big insurance claim, I would know exactly what was going on. Another one that I've had to learn is formatting my pictures so that not only do they work for my customers, so in this case it's like a long skinny sort of picture that can be hung in places that have a lot of glazing and not much wall space, which is a common thing these days. But also with this particular one, I know that I can get 2 of these out of a sheet of mat board with very little wastage. Sorry, that zooming in, zooming out is a bit annoying. One of the most important things I think for if you're in a retail business is actually turning up when you say you'll be there. Now, it did take me a couple of years to sort of really take this seriously. But listening to other businesses along the rail trail, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to be a good girl about this. So if I'm going to be closed for a day, which does happen, I'll make sure that I've sort of like publicised that quite widely and hopefully about a week in advance. But yeah, if you're going to be there from 10 until 3, you need to be there from 10 until 3. So this is the command centre, which is a little messy, but I'm not a tidy person. But yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, nice calibrated monitor there. But the one thing I'd like to draw your attention to is my really high-tech system for tracking orders, which is the little fish and chip shop cafe type receipt hanger there. And I do have an electronic system, but this one works for me because it's really visual and I'll quickly know if I'm getting behind. So actually, if being involved with kind of a retail business, it's really important that I look after myself and I can duck for cover when I haven't got customers in the shop. So I've got my nice wee kitchen here. It is so neat to be able to offer my friends a cup of coffee at the back and just cruise. And so yeah, if you're passing, pop in, I can make you a cup of coffee. So this is good stock keeping. So those barcodes are generated by that point of sale system that I was talking about. And so when I do a stock take, I just run like a scanner along the barcodes. And some systems you can actually use your phone even. And it takes me seconds. It is just super satisfying actually. So yeah, and it just is very, very efficient. And also making sure, you know, things are packed nicely so they don't get dented and that sort of thing. So there's one messy storeroom. That's just a wee bit of it. That gives you a bit of a general gist that I do actually have quite a big inventory. And that works for me. It means at any one time I can show people what they want to see. That's a bit more of it. Another thing I've had to learn is about how much raw materials you should be holding at any one time. This was actually quite the learning curve. It's really easy to over purchase or under purchase, and making good decisions about this takes a bit of experience actually. And it's not, you know, buying bulk amounts of stuff because it appears to be a little bit cheaper may not necessarily be the right course of action. Especially if you've got limited space to store it. Another thing I've had to learn a lot, is obviously people doing the rail trail can't really take a picture on the back of their bike. It would make a really good wind sail. But so they need to have their work couriered to them. So I've had to learn how to pack and send things so that they arrive intact. And these boxes in particular, along with the other bits of cardboard and bubble wrap, are custom made for me so that I can do up things pretty quickly and it looks reasonably sharp. Reducing waste and I'm not really an epic greenie. I think we all do need to be conscious of the environment, but it pains me when I have to chuck out heaps of like really good quality cardboard and things like that, or mat board. And so what I do is quite often make smaller things for people who don't want to make big purchases out of stuff that I have left over in the gallery. So some of these that you can see were actually test prints for my Iris Awards entries. There's nothing wrong with them other than the tiny thing that I apparently needed to fix, which I probably wouldn't even remember now. So yeah, so that's a good use of those materials. And also I use like leftover framing to make smaller pieces for people, particularly coming into Christmas. People are looking for gifts and things. Right, I will do that. Right, sorry, just navigating through. Yeah, so leveraging all those wee things has helped me save quite a lot of time, particularly that point of sale. And investing in those things, which can be fairly hefty, but it actually saves time and effort and means I have a bit more brain space for the creative side of things. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions about that sort of stuff as well. So that's just my intro, which was rather long, sorry, but and I'm quite keen to hear from you and those sort of questions about this type of business, and balancing creativity and business and all that. I've talked to loads of people at NZIPP people about this sort of stuff, and I know there are a lot of people who want to know heaps about it. So fire ahead, please, please.
Do you want people to put the questions in the chat or just speak up?
They're welcome to speak up.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if there are things in the chat, actually, maybe if you make yourself the host again, Rach, and then you'll be able to see what's going on better.
Oh, I can see it here now. There's nothing in the chat yet, but I'm sure there's people that are dying to ask you loads of questions.
Please. I've sort of primed a couple of people to come with questions. Have you got any questions, Rach?
I was looking at your stock and also things like you said your boxing was custom made for you. How much does your location factor into how much stock you keep and stuff? Do you have any problems being a little bit more out of the way, or?
Definitely over COVID, I had a few challenges, but the courier systems and freight here are pretty good. But I suppose it's like everything, getting familiar with the times of day and the days of the week that they operate and how long it takes. So, for example, long lengths of framing, they all come from Auckland and they have to go on a big truck. And so I know that if I'm thinking about ordering framing, I should do it at least 2 weeks before I need it. Whereas say what's a good example? Bubble wrap.
Okay.
It's just about overnight. So yeah.
And so I guess too, because you have set hours, if you're expecting something, then you might turn up a bit earlier on anticipation.
Yeah. So to be honest, because we've got at home a big covered deck outside the house, a lot of stuff I will get delivered to home if I'm not sure how reliable the couriers are. So, and also I don't want people leaving stuff outside here because it's there's nowhere really secure to leave it if I'm not here. But some, like this is country town stuff, so some of the courier drivers know that I'm here and know what hours I'm going to be here, and so they'll just turn up with it, whether it's addressed to here or home.
That's good. So in the chat we have Jack who has a dozen questions.
I'll just go for the one I'm most interested in. In terms of limited edition prints, how's your ratio, or what are your thoughts on, just a print as a print, or limited edition, or single edition? Have you experimented over the years with that? And do buyers really care?
They are fabulous questions, actually, and I was really hoping someone would ask this. So it has been a bit of experimentation over the years as I've sort of grown and learnt, and also people have started recognizing a bit more value in my work. But I guess for me, I sometimes have in my head sort of like a lifetime amount of money that I wouldn't mind getting for an image that I've put out there. And so whether it's an edition of 5 or an open edition, because I do a few of those, I'm sort of, perhaps trying to get about $25,000. And that's over a significant period of time. And that's just my feeling for it. I have had a go at a one-off. It didn't really go that well for me because it's priced over $20,000, and so there weren't that many buyers for it in this area. Possibly in Auckland it might have happened, but I changed that and made this particular piece an edition of 5, and that was a good decision because there were people sort of waiting in the wings and quite keen to buy. Yeah. So yeah, it's and I think the other thing I look at, I suppose, when I'm deciding uh how many prints I should be producing of a particular image is how basically how popular I think it might be. So if it's something like that rail trail image, there would be no point making that limited edition. It's
Yep.
I've sold, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of those. The other thing I believe, and this is my personal opinion, is that when you start getting over editions of 40, people, unless they're very well known, are going to be quite lucky to sell that number of prints in their lifetime. I started out doing larger editions because I thought I was pretty shit hot. But I've found that that's not overly valuable for people. Yeah, but those really popular pieces I'll tend to make open. Yeah. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's kind of what I was thinking, but I've never actually
Yeah.
done that. So,
Yeah. I think just trying things out and seeing is and if you've got something, an image that's really precious to you, it can be quite hard to sort of put a value on it. But never worry about that too much, because there's surely going to be more great images, especially if you're sort of part of perhaps the process of being part of NZIPP or entering the Iris Awards. There will be more good images.
and Bruce has asked a question along that line that I had in mind. It's in the chat.
Okay, hang on, let's have a look at the chat. Bruce, are you giving size options for the limited editions? That's a really good question too. I've never felt a real comfort level with offering an edition of 20, say, and 20 at small, 20 at medium, and 20 at large. I'm assuming that's what this question is about. I've always felt, in fairness to my buyers, that if it's an edition of 20, it's at any size. And so if someone wants and this has happened to me, they want their print to be smaller than the one on the wall, it is one of the 20. Yeah, I feel for me, it's something that I've stood by since the very beginning. I've really wanted to make sure that I'm very clear about that.
I think that's really interesting because it varies a lot with artists. It seems to be a personal choice, and some people have different, ethical is not the word I'm thinking, but people have very different opinions on how far you can push that, and it seems to evolve over time. So I think the key with that is probably making a decision early on which way you're going to go with it and sticking to it. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is really important. And look, there's a lot of things you can experiment with, but this one is one that you do need to be reasonably clear about at the beginning, as far as, you know, we're not talking about everything, but for a particular image, you need to make a decision on what you're doing. And you know, you can change over time with particular images, but that's been my approach anyway. Right now, what else have we got? Bruce, when I grow up, I want to be Janyne. Question from Keith Malloy. Is this being recorded? Okay, right. I would really welcome a question about pricing. Fire it at me.
Jared's just asked, what do you think influences someone's decisions to buy a print the most?
Oh, look, I really encourage people who come into my gallery to actually go with their heart and really buy the artwork that they're really connected with. And that could be because they've been to the place or they have an association with the place. That, excuse me, happens quite often. Or it could be just that they get a really amazing feeling from the piece, which is, that's really what I want. But of course, I mean, I get a good number of people that come in here and go, oh, I've got a space above the couch, that then we've got this color on the walls, and that picture works with the color and the couch and the space rather than the content of the actual picture. But I do spend quite a lot of time talking to people about what they want and why they want it. Is that?
We have another question here from Rochelle. I've spoken to an artist who prices based on square inch. Do you have a pricing methodology?
Yeah, Rochelle, I think it is that I do tend to err on that lifetime yield, I suppose, for what that's a really commercial word, lifetime sort of yield from an image. Now look, some images that I produce are just too offbeat to really come into that category. But something that I see as being attractive to customers, for want of a better word, I will be sort of trying to get that sort of, I don't know, 25, hopefully 30 grand out of it over the course of my life, which hopefully will be a good long time. But pricing per square inch, it's sort of, I'm not too sure about that. I feel like then whether a piece is really large does not necessarily make it really good. Obviously I price a bit more for anything that's bigger or got beautiful non-reflect glass in it, or using all archival materials, which is my limited edition, so I'm pretty well covered there anyway. Yeah, here we go. Roger, is it Rochelle? I hope that helps. Roger, thanks for your generous talk. Question 1, how much can you expect to make from a gallery? Well, I guess it really depends on where you are and what you're doing, because I do know that some galleries will never make a profit, and some galleries make huge amounts of money. For me, I live in an area where there are, shall we say, slightly limited career options for women. And I don't drive a truck, and Dean would probably never let me. And so as far as income producing jobs go in this area, this is probably about as good as it gets. And it's certainly helped me sort of bring up my family, and I'm definitely profitable. But I guess it also depends on your cost structures and things like that too, because I try really hard to not run a really expensive business, and that's kind of sticking to your knitting and not getting too carried away with buying like heaps of really expensive camera gear, because things like my printer here, that will make me more money than a camera ever will. And so, yeah, as far as what you can expect, I don't know. I mean, it really depends where you are situated, those cost structures, whether you're selling really accessible work, or whether it's really high end. There's so many variables. And I think as far as assessing that prior to opening a gallery, things like taking your work to exhibitions as a guest exhibitor, art shows, will give you a bit of an idea of how much people are actually prepared to pay. How would you advise that one assesses their market for their particular work? In fact, that just goes back to what I was saying before, is those tiny experiments, just that are in line with your strategy and your, I suppose, for want of a better word, brand. So if you're wanting to sell high-end stuff that you might not necessarily put it up in a cafe, but I think actually probably the biggest bit of advice that I would give on assessing the market for your work is to actually be with your work and listen to people, and get their feedback. Yeah. What is the biggest challenge for you in your business, if you had time, the biggest reward? Biggest challenge, I think some of the biggest challenges came in the beginning because I was quite resistant to the idea of running a shop and actually being buttoned down to doing particular hours. I was quite rebellious about that and a little bit of a bad attitude, but I think I've settled down now and I'm really happy. I've kind of got this sort of seasonal routine going that I actually really love. And that goes part and parcel with living here. We're getting a beautiful sunset happening here. And biggest reward, I think one of the biggest rewards for me is that I've been doing this for 8 years and I feel like I could keep going for another 8. I'm quite happy and content in what I'm doing. And also I suppose I am a person who's never been that talented at anything. And so this whole process has given me just a bit of something that I can hang my hat on and say that I'm a bit better than average, which is really, really cool if you're a person like me. Yeah. Here we go. Oh, where did I learn to frame? Good question. We taught ourselves. So Dean, with the engineering brain, figured out how to use the mighty machine that potentially chops off your fingers. And I figured out the mat cutter. And then we actually, when we were really struggling, we asked some of our suppliers for help, just small things, because obviously no one's going to come here and teach us. I think these days YouTube is a bit more of a resource, but there was really nothing when we started. And so we basically taught ourselves. Yeah, a lot of experimenting. We're really lucky. We got heaps of, when we bought the picture framing gear, most of which was secondhand, we got heaps of materials that were pretty, no one wants pink frames anymore. And so we're able to like just play with that and figure it all out. Are you putting limited, this is Bruce, are you putting limited edition prints, etc., on the gift cards and other merch items? So this, I'm assuming, Bruce, you mean, are they turning up on things like this? That would be a hard no. I'm quite protective of my limited editions, and the only place that they would tend to get printed would be just on my marketing collateral. So yeah, I tend to just keep them for actual framed prints. And the other thing that I'll never do is actually well, I don't know. I tend to print all my work myself, and rather than I'll never pass a file on to someone because I'm not quite sure what would transpire. So yeah, I'm fairly protective of all that. And someone says, thanks for sharing, Janyne. Awesome business model, super organized. My family so wouldn't say that. Bruce with another good question. Do you make many sales purely online without a visit in person? Probably not. People need to have sort of been in touch with me in some way, especially for the larger purchases. The online shop is a really good backup to what I do, but I do most of my sales through the front door. But yeah, it's sort of in an upswing mode, the online stuff. Yeah. Oh, this is a good question too. Have you partnered with any local stores and galleries, and any advice around them? So when I first started, I actually did partner with a local gift shop because I didn't have my own shop, and they were great. They were really good for that sort of lower value, more accessible work, and they definitely helped me get a really good local profile. Since having my own gallery, there's two reasons why I haven't really worked with other galleries. One is that they tend to charge astronomical commissions. So you're looking at upwards of 50% for many of them, which is huge, especially if your piece is not of massive value. And the other thing is that they're not so keen on having me because I have my own gallery. So, but I am considering whether I should be working with, say, a gallery in Auckland or further afield. I've had approaches, but nothing too serious that I'm happy with. And so I will tend to suss these places out and see if I feel my work would work well and whether they'll do a good job of selling it for their 50% commission. And so, you know, someone said to me, it's always quite good to be a pretend customer in one of these galleries, especially if they don't know who you are, and just go in there and act like a customer and see how you feel about things. Kay, how is your art being received at art shows, and has it been worthwhile? I would say I've had a really good run with art shows, and they were quite instrumental in me getting going with this place. And it has definitely been worthwhile. It's a really good way to get a profile for yourself. Now, I used to always do the Christchurch art show, and I still get people coming in, and this is years ago. I think the last time I did it was 2020, and they still come in and go, oh, we saw you at the art show in Christchurch. It has been really good. It's a really good way of getting yourself out there with your own work, but in learning how to sell it. Fortune favors those that are really can really talk to their customers. It helps heaps. If you decide to display your work and not actually be there with it, it may not be so successful. But if you love talking about your work, it's really easy and it's fun. It can be quite tiring, but look, it's definitely something to consider, is putting a toe in the water. I haven't done one for a wee while because unfortunately a lot of the shows are at just really crappy times of year for me, like times when I'm really busy here. So it would, but middle of winter, if they want to do it in the middle of winter, I'll be right there, as long as it doesn't conflict with the Iris Awards. Yeah. What product do you recommend when starting at partner retail gallery? Fine art, postcards, smaller prints, or go big? Probably well, things like fine art postcards are all good, but you are still going to be you know, a wholesaler, so you're going to be giving away 50% of your retail price, unless you have some other special arrangement. You might get away with like 30%. But that's sort of middle ground, because say gift shops and retail, often people are not really expecting to be spending big money. And as soon as things go over about $50, $60, $70, there's a little bit more resistance. And whereas in my gallery here, I can talk to people, and it means that they're more likely to spend bigger money. But that whole meet the artist thing is a big draw for people, which is why art shows go so well. Have we got any other questions? These have been great questions. How do I advertise? Yes, I was hoping someone would ask this one. As I said earlier, probably all the usual suspects, and I've just been building up over the years. I'll put it out there right now. I'm not good with social media, but I am there and I do try. But I think I learned a really valuable lesson at the most recent NZIPP conference from a presenter. It's a lovely lady, and I can't remember her name, but she photographed babies. And oh goodness, my mum and dad are trying to call me. We might just hang up. Anyway, oh, Natasha, there we go. But she was fabulous, and she really drove it home for me that your social media does not need to be perfect. And it was like I'd been set free. And so I've been able to sort of get to grips with that a wee bit more of late. So and that it's just building up over time. So we do the social media. The website is really important. And I do spend a lot of time on that. And what else do I do? I do my wee cards, and now I have my sort of bigger rack cards, which this is a standard size to go like in a visitor's centre or in a brochure display holder. These I have over at the local cafe, so people quite often pick them up and then come and see me. What else do I do? Having a main street location, you can't go past that. And I always try and change out what's in my window reasonably regularly. And I'll put up things to say that this picture has won an award or whatever. Word of mouth is especially for this type of business, you know, Mrs. Brown from down the road who's got heaps of grandchildren and nieces and nephews, and some of those local people are really proud of what I'm doing, and so they'll talk a mile a minute about it, which is just so flattering and so lovely. And then their children and grandchildren will come in and see me. And I get some great referrals from other businesses on the rail trail as well. So yeah. What else have we got? Goodness, it's all happening. Roger, talk us through a typical conversation to a customer who you don't know but might end up buying something. What questions unlock the best customers? There is no real typical conversation. It's almost just taking you time. So when someone comes into my shop that I don't know, and I don't know most of them, I will introduce myself. I'll say, that this is all my work, and if it's really obvious that they're from Australia or from dressed in lycra, then I will actually say that I ship things. And then I'll let them have a look around and just talk amongst themselves, and just enjoy, and give them time. And it's funny the things you learn, because I know women like it when you talk to them, but guys actually quite like it when you leave them alone. So it's just those little things, and some people really want you to talk to them and others don't. And sometimes the things that really unlock customers, I suppose, is actually getting them to talk about themselves. You know, where are you from, and what, and then sometimes we'll talk about what their house is like. And you know that you're doing quite well when they say, oh, you know, what sort of space they've got at home for this thing, or they start talking about their beautiful new home, that sort of stuff. So it is all about listening and reading, and you get better at it over time. Do you have any tips on buying a printer? Yeah, go to the trade show at the NZIPP conference and talk to the experts there. Absolutely. And learn your stuff before you buy a printer. Learn what you know, how much printing you're going to be doing. Because if you're not got enough good work for a printer, you can end up with a bit of a liability, because it won't perform very well if you're not using it regularly. And I have enough work for this big printer. That's not a problem. And if I haven't used it for a while, I'll just run some prints that I know I'll need in the future. But definitely, yeah, getting the expert advice. And seriously, trade shows a great place to start, and looking online and considering and becoming an expert at printers. You know, I mean, you don't have to know every bit of back end stuff, but it really does help if you have some knowledge before you go into it. Oh yes, we're talking about Natasha, I think, and her inspiring presentation. Right. Do you go for sale, promotion, or seasonal pricing, or re-release of a limited edition? I don't normally have sales, but I did do one over Labour weekend, because I had too much stuff in my storeroom and I needed to have a bit of a clean out. But also I really wanted to bring in a few more locals, because I hadn't seen them for a while, and from that point of view it worked amazingly. And so that was over Labour weekend, and so I had a goal of getting rid of some stuff. It worked really well, and also getting back in touch with those locals. But no, normally I don't have sales. Promotions, I really enjoy doing a new release promotion, and that always gets quite a bit of traction. People are quite interested to see my new work, which is very, very cool. I'm hoping to do that sometime soon and not get in the way of Christmas. Christmas is another kind of promotion. I suppose in a way I quite like to have a bit of a calendar going of doing certain things, like, for example, and this is all just me, work in progress, so I've still got a lot to learn and do on all this, but February, I know from my point of sale system, is a slow month, particularly the middle weeks of February. So, you know, maybe I'll do something then, to get people to jump in the car and drive from Wanaka, Arrowtown, Queenstown, or Dunedin. So that's yeah, re-releasing limited editions. This is something I'm actually considering doing at some point, because I've got some older limited editions that are really cool, but I've learned how to frame better now and print better. So I'm thinking I might re-release them with different framing, but still sticking to that number of editions. Do you host events, meetings, workshops in your gallery to get people to come to your gallery? Yeah, that's a great idea. I do occasionally host events, but it's standing, everyone has to stand, because I've only got about 3 chairs. But I sometimes I do like doing the new release thing, and quite often I'll invite people in here for at Christmas time for a drink, and I do chocolate dipped strawberries and that sort of stuff. And I do sometimes host like the local business group to have meetings here. And yeah, but as far as actual workshops of photographers, I do get quite a few visits from photography groups, and they will come in, and I have a limited capacity for going and talking to them, so it is nice if they decide to come here, and I'm quite happy to show them around and talk to them. So I've got someone lovely message, someone they had to leave early. Yeah, I recently got invited to partner and sell with a local retail space. So this is a great info to start with. Thank you so much. That's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Gosh, we've covered quite a bit of ground here.
It's been
Yeah.
fantastic, Janyne. Thank you so much for being just so completely and utterly open in everything that you do. It's really refreshing.
Yeah, I'm quite happy. It's really not rocket science. It's about just trying little things, because what works for me may not work for someone else. So there's lots of things to try, and it's just about keeping your head up and staying positive with it as well. And if something doesn't work, just move on to the next thing. Yeah.
I did really like that you said at the start that you didn't get heavily into a business plan, but that you did do your due diligence, because there's a lot of times where I know personally I have, and I know of other creative people that have, is that we have fantastic ideas and we overthink them so much that we never actually end up acting on them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, completely. And I am a massive overthinker. I'm just terrible. But I think sometimes you almost need just a wee bit of a push. Now, it's not necessarily from someone else, it just can be from circumstance, like me breaking my Achilles tendon. Um, and another one can be like this building was vacant, and I thought, oh, it is the best building on the street, location and quality wise. If I don't get my act together, someone else is going to snaffle it. So I just signed myself up for a lease for a year, just so that I could experiment and just make sure that I was happy. And when I knew that I was happy, I did my due diligence and actually bought the building.
How do you
So
balance the off season, because you're only open for a certain season of the year, is that right? But
yeah.
you've still got expenses, I guess, in and around that. So you have a set amount that you have to make in your on season, and you're offsetting your expenses because you're not using the place that outweighs what your potential income would be in those months. Or
Yeah, it does tend to. And so you've just got to work extra hard, especially at the times that you know you're going to be busy, and make sure you capitalize on that. And I might do extra hours, so that the time between Christmas and New Year is just absolutely berserk here. And just making sure that I'm here those extra hours at that time. It's a small price to pay, really. The other thing is offsetting those sort of potential losses that can happen over the winter by trying to lift the that's another promotion thing I do, making sure I get email newsletters out there and keeping my profile going. It's quite cool actually. If I sell a high value limited edition in the middle of winter, that's absolute gold. And that will keep me going for a good wee while. And that's one picture. Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, I do have those subscriptions for things like Zero and Bend and all the rest of it. They don't stop over the winter, but a lot of other stuff does. I'm not paying big amounts for materials and stuff like that. So you sort of just go to ground a wee bit. But yes, you need a bit of a fighting fund for the winter.
We've got another question from Roger. Did you ever have a time when you thought you might go under financially? COVID question. What was the safety net? Did you have a safety net?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm really lucky, and I mean, I'm I always tell my kids to be strong, independent women, and I really want to be. But look, I mean, if shit hit the fan, Dean would look after me. But I've been a long way from that. And COVID was really, really interesting. COVID gave me my biggest year ever because all these people wanted to buy New Zealand made stuff and support local. And also they were all traveling here. They weren't going overseas. And I was just recovering from cancer and I had this massive year. It was just crazy. And I got through the whole cancer thing, by the by. And financially, I was able to keep working because it's my own business. I could pace myself. So there is that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Uh,
So Jack says, thank you so much. I've long wondered about many of the things you spoke about. The print, the self concept really gets with me, as does the know the artist one.
yeah. 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 The print it yourself concept is really cool, but it's not for everyone because you need to be printing a decent amount of work. But there are people like Rachel here who can help with that sort of thing and kind of be a stepping stone to getting you underway doing it yourself. And you will still learn a lot through getting your work printed by other people, if they're good people. When I first started, there was no control on the process, and the printers were doing things to my prints that were not what I asked for, and using really crap media, and this is a long, this is 15 years ago, and things have changed now. So yeah.
So what I've done is I've bought myself a small printer so that I can get the process right and the end product right. And so that I know when I send it off to get the bigger print done, send them my hard copy. This is what I want. Yeah, don't send me anything else.
Yeah, actually that's a good idea. I think for others that are tuning in, I think the other important part is getting everything talking to each other, which is, your raw capture, your monitor, your printer, so that you're getting the results you expect rather than something random. Yeah. But I think these things have grown in that area since I stepped away from it. So yeah. Oh, Roger's away. He needs to get the kids to bed.
Dark here now, so everything's getting quite noisy outside.
Yeah. I think oh, my mum and dad are Dean's sending me updates of the cricket. But yeah, no, mum and dad will probably try and call soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janyne. Has anyone got any very last questions before we wrap up? Got to thank you again, Janyne. Such an honest and informative talk. I need to get the kids to bed. Lots of thank yous.
Oh, that's very sweet.
That's cool. Thanks everybody for coming along, and this will be recorded, and I will pass it on to Sarah, and I don't know how she or where she puts them, but it will be put somewhere. If you can't find it, email info@nzipp.org.nz and Sarah will get it to you.
Yeah. Thanks guys. That was very cool and some great questions, and go you for being here and not sitting at home with a wine watching the cricket.
No cricket.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.